Inferior species should know their place in the galaxy. High Pontiff Kale pronounced from his elevated dais, his six-fingered hands gripping the ceremonial staff of office. The Grand Council chamber of the Vorta Dominion fell silent, its ornate ceiling depicting the conquest of 100 worlds glittering with precious metals that caught the light of 3 artificial suns. These humans have expanded beyond their assigned boundaries. They must be taught the price of such transgressions. Fleet Commander Theron stood at attention, his spine rigid beneath his obsidian uniform adorned with the silver markings of his rank. Unlike many officers in the room nodding enthusiastically at Kale's pronouncement, Theron's face remained impassive, betraying neither agreement nor dissent. Yet beneath that careful mask, unease stirred like a coiled serpent. Battle Marshal Morgoth, Kale continued, gesturing to the imposing figure standing opposite Theron. You shall deliver this lesson with appropriate clarity. Morgoth, broad-shouldered even for a Vorton, with ritual scarification marking his campaigns across his scaled neck, bowed deeply. It will be my privilege, High Pontiff. The humans' pitiful explorer corps will offer no meaningful resistance. Their colonies at Cygnus X-1, Gliese 581G, and Tau City sit at the edges of our proclaimed expansion zone, Kale said, bringing up a holographic map that dominated the chamber center. The targeted human settlements glowed a soft blue against the crimson vastness of Vorton-claimed space. Remove them. Make an example that all lesser races will understand. After the council adjourned, Theron found himself walking alongside Morgoth down the cathedral-like corridors of the command center. The battle marshal's excitement was palpable, his breath coming quicker with anticipation. 3 strikes, simultaneous and overwhelming, Morgoth said, his voice reverberating off the metallic walls. We'll be in and out before their pathetic central government even receives distress signals. Theron chose his words carefully. The intelligence reports indicate these are primarily scientific and agricultural settlements. Minimal defenses, civilian populations. Morgoth laughed, a harsh sound like metal grinding against stone. All the better. Maximum impact, minimal risk. Are you growing soft, Theron? I concern myself with efficiency, Theron replied evenly. Humans have been observed to adapt rapidly to challenges. They've progressed from atmospheric flight to interstellar travel in under 3 centuries, a pace unmatched by any species except the ancient Presari. And yet their vessels are fragile toys compared to even our light cruisers, Morgoth scoffed. Their explorer corps consists of converted research vessels with token point defense systems. They've spread themselves too thin across their colonies, prioritizing expansion over consolidation. Which speaks to ambition, not weakness, Theron noted. Morgoth stopped walking, turning to face the fleet commander directly. Are you questioning the High Pontiff's directive? I am planning for contingencies, as is my duty, Theron replied, meeting the battle marshal's gaze without flinching. Victory is achieved through preparation, not assumption. Then prepare the 3rd and 5th battle groups, Morgoth said with finality. We strike in 48 hours. The attack was executed with brutal precision. Vorton warships emerged from faster-than-light travel directly in orbit above each human colony, their arrival synchronized to the millisecond. The settlements, Haven on Cygnus X-1, Emerald on Gliese 581G, and Sanctuary on Tau City E, had no warning. From his command chair aboard the flagship Dominance, Theron watched the tactical displays with growing disquiet. The human defenses were exactly as intelligence had predicted, minimal and quickly overwhelmed. Orbital platforms disintegrated under concentrated fire. Ground-based shield generators collapsed after token resistance. Begin planetary bombardment, Morgoth ordered, his voice transmitting simultaneously to all Vorton vessels across the 3 systems. Kinetic impactors and plasma streams rained down upon the colonies. Agricultural domes on Emerald cracked open like eggs, their carefully maintained ecosystems exposed to the planet's toxic atmosphere. The floating platforms of Haven, suspended in the upper cloud layers of a gas giant, tumbled as their levitation systems failed, plunging into the crushing depths below. The sprawling underground complexes of Sanctuary shuddered as precision strikes collapsed entrance tunnels and ventilation shafts, entombing thousands. Casualties estimated at 27,000 on Haven, 32,000 on Emerald, and 41,000 on Sanctuary, reported the sensor officer, her voice mechanical, betraying no emotion. No military assets remaining. Civilian infrastructure, 87% destroyed. Morgath's scaled lips pulled back in a predatory smile. Excellent. Send the following message on all frequencies used by human communications. The Vorted Dominion has spoken. Further encroachment into our sovereign territory will be met with greater consequences. Know your place in the galaxy's order. The message was transmitted, echoing across the stars to human outposts and worlds. Then, as abruptly as they had arrived, the Vorten fleet disappeared back into the void, leaving behind only ruins and silence. In the aftermath, Theron expected a flurry of diplomatic communications, perhaps even desperate retaliation attempts. The human central government on Earth would surely respond, with pleas for peace, angry denunciations, or threats of consequences. Yet, as hours stretched into days, the silence from human space grew increasingly conspicuous. Their communication networks are in chaos, reported intelligence officer Vex during the post-operation briefing. Their news broadcasts speak only of mourning, of families separated, of survivors struggling in makeshift shelters. Their leaders offer empty words about diplomatic solutions and peaceful coexistence. Morgath laughed. As expected, they understand now the cost of defiance. And yet, Theron interjected, studying the data streams with narrowed eyes. Their military channels remain silent. No fleet mobilizations, no redeployment of their Explorer Corps vessels. Nothing, because they have no significant military to mobilize, Morgath said dismissively. Our intelligence estimates their FDL-capable ships number fewer than 30, most retrofitted for exploration rather than combat. That estimation may be incomplete, Theron suggested carefully. Your caution borders on paranoia, Fleet Commander, the Battle Marshal replied. The humans are subdued. The High Pontiff is pleased. Consider the matter closed. But in the days that followed, Theron's unease only deepened. The human response to such devastating attacks should have included some form of action, even if only symbolic. Instead, an eerie stillness had fallen over their territories. When he brought this observation to the High Command, he was met with indifference. The silence confirms their submission, High Pontiff Kale declared when Theron sought audience. They recognized the futility of resistance. Yet on the 7th day after the attacks, long-range sensors detected an anomaly. One by one, human settlements across their colonial sphere began to go dark. Power signatures dimmed, communication arrays fell silent, orbital traffic ceased. A civilization-wide power failure, suggested one analyst when Theron ordered intensive scanning. No, Theron replied, watching the systematic pattern of darkness spreading across human space. This is deliberate, coordinated. Within 48 hours, every human colony and outpost had gone silent. Civilian vessels disappeared from trade routes. The only remaining signals were automated navigational beacons, preserving safety protocols for other species' ships even as human presence vanished like morning mist under a rising sun. They're withdrawing, Theron murmured to himself. But to where? And why? The answer came unexpectedly. As Theron stood watch on the command deck of his personal vessel, the Vigilant, analyzing the latest sensor sweeps of human territory, a communication officer suddenly straightened in her chair. "Commander," she called, confusion evident in her voice. "We're receiving a direct transmission. Unencrypted. Impossible to trace its origin, but telemetry suggests it's coming from somewhere within the Horsehead Nebula." The Horsehead Nebula, a dense, largely unexplored region at the edge of human space, notorious for interfering with sensors and FDL navigation. Perfect for concealment. "On screen," Theron ordered. The main display flickered, then resolved into the image of a human female, elderly by their standards, with silver hair pulled back severely from a weathered face marked by decades of exposure to varying gravities and atmospheric conditions. She wore a simple black uniform without insignia or decoration, stripped of all identifiers, yet somehow more imposing for its austerity. Fleet Commander Theron of the Vorta Dominion, she began without preamble, her voice carrying the quiet authority of one accustomed to absolute obedience. I am Custodian Lyra of the Aegis Command. Theron felt a chill run down his spine. Aegis Command? No intelligence briefing had ever mentioned such an entity. You attacked 3 human colonies 7 days ago, Lyra continued, her eyes holding his through the vast distance of space. 27,142 casualties on Haven, 32,974 on Emerald, 41,518 on Sanctuary, 101,634 lives. We counted each one. The precision of her casualty figures was unsettling. They matched the Vorten estimates almost exactly. Your empire has mistaken patience for weakness, exploration for naivety. Your High Pontiff wished to teach humanity its place. Instead, you have reminded us why Aegis exists. Her expression remained unchanged, yet something dangerous flickered in her eyes. You bombed human colonies? Congratulations, you have awakened the dragons. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the command deck in stunned silence. For several heartbeats, no one spoke. Then the tactical officer cleared his throat. Commander, dragons? A mythological creature from human folklore. Theron replied distantly, his mind racing. A symbol of destructive power and vengeance in many of their cultural traditions. The communication officer's console began chiming with urgent alerts. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures emerging within the Horsehead Nebula. Multiple sources, unlike anything in our databases. Full sensor sweep, Theron ordered. Alert battle, Marshal Morgoth and High Command. The data flooding in defied belief. Vast structures were powering up within the nebula's concealing clouds, shipyards and space docks that had somehow remained hidden from Vorten intelligence for decades, perhaps centuries. And from these facilities emerged vessels unlike any in the known galaxy. They were angular, obsidian constructs with complex geometric patterns across their hulls reminiscent of scales. No external engines, no visible weapons systems, yet they radiated power readings that dwarfed even the mightiest Vorten dreadnoughts. Hundreds materialized, then thousands, arranged in precise formations that spoke of meticulous training and coordination. Simultaneously, similar fleets appeared from hidden bases in the Kuiper belts of seemingly uninhabited star systems, from within the coronas of red dwarf stars, from artificial hollows carved into asteroids, all places the Vorta had dismissed as worthless or too harsh for habitation. Impossible, whispered the sensor officer as the data continued to pour in. Our intelligence estimates. They were tracking the wrong fleet entirely. Theron understood with sudden, terrible clarity. The Explorer Corps, the seemingly vulnerable human ships they had monitored for decades, had been a facade, a decoy that had successfully masked humanity's true military capabilities from the galaxy at large. Before Theron could process the full implications, new alerts sounded. Multiple FDL signatures detected, the tactical officer shouted. They're jumping across Vorten space at every major hyperspace junction leading to core systems, including the capital itself. Human vessels appeared simultaneously. They formed silent blockades, making no aggressive moves, transmitting no demands. They simply waited, an implied threat more menacing than any declaration of war. The capital fell into chaos. Citizens who had celebrated the lesson taught to humanity days earlier now flooded emergency shelters. The High Council convened an emergency session, with Kale demanding immediate action. This is an outrage. The High Pontiff raged, his ceremonial robes disheveled from his hasty arrival at the secure bunker beneath the capital. How dare these primitives threaten the sacred homeworld? Morgoth, break their blockade immediately. The battle marshal, whose earlier swagger had diminished considerably, nevertheless bowed. As you command, High Pontiff, I have assembled a task force from our home fleet, 300 vessels, including 20 dreadnoughts. We will shatter this human pretense of power. Theron, joining the meeting via secure hologram from his vessel several light years away, spoke up. Battle Marshal, I strongly advise caution. We are facing an unknown force with clearly superior technology. Diplomatic. Silence. Kale thundered. We do not negotiate with inferior species who dare to threaten us. Morgoth, proceed with the attack. Show these humans the true might of the Vorta Dominion. Theron could only watch helplessly as Morgoth's task force engaged the human blockade at the capital system's hyperspace junction. The Vortan ships opened fire with their most devastating weapons, plasma lances capable of cutting through planetoids, quantum disruptors that could unravel matter at the subatomic level, gravity bombs that created localized singularities. The human vessels absorbed the assault with minimal effect. Their black hulls rippled slightly, as if the devastating energies were being redirected or absorbed through some unknown technology. They neither scattered nor returned fire immediately, enduring the barrage with eerie composure. Then they responded. No energy beams, no missile salvos. Instead, space itself seemed to distort around the Vortan vessels. Localized space-time anomalies erupted throughout the formation, causing ships to partially phase out of normal space-time. From the human vessels emerged swarms of autonomous drones, each trailing what appeared to be impossibly thin filaments of pure energy that sliced through Vortan armor like it was mist. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted less than 15 minutes. When it ended, 297 Vortan vessels drifted powerless, their systems completely neutralized. The remaining 3, including Morgoth's flagship, had been surgically disabled, engines and weapons destroyed with precision that left life support and communication systems untouched. Across all Vortan communication channels, Custodian Lyra appeared once more. This time, behind her stood a line of humans in the same black uniforms, their expressions equally impassive. The image was interspersed with footage of Morgoth's defeated armada. Attention, citizens and leadership of the Vorta Dominion, Lyra began, her voice reaching every Vortan world simultaneously. You have witnessed a small demonstration of Aegis capabilities. We now present our terms. First, an immediate and unconditional cessation of hostilities. Second, the surrender of Battle Marshal Morgoth and all officers involved in the colony attacks to face trial under the Aegis Interstellar Charter. Third, High Pontiff Kale must publicly renounce the Vortan doctrine of expansion and acknowledge human sovereignty over all settled territories. Fourth, war reparations to the affected colonies, payable in resources and technology, not territory. You have one rotation of your capital world to comply. Should you refuse, Aegis will enact comprehensive defensive assertion. The transmission ended, leaving the High Council in stunned silence. This is blackmail. Kale finally exploded. We will never submit to human demands. Theron watched the High Pontiff's increasing irrationality with growing alarm. The evidence was irrefutable. The Vorta had catastrophically underestimated humanity and now faced an adversary of overwhelming technological superiority. Yet pride in centuries of assumed dominance blinded Kale to the reality of their situation. As the council meeting descended into factional arguments, Theron received an encrypted communication from his intelligence network within the capital. What he read turned his blood cold. Kale had secretly ordered the activation of Doomsday Asteroid, a superweapon disguised as an artificial moon orbiting a key industrial world. Its planet-killing capabilities had been developed in violation of multiple interstellar treaties, its existence known only to the highest echelons of Vortan leadership. Kale intended to target New Terra, humanity's largest remaining intact colony, in a desperate bid to force human capitulation. He didn't understand what they were facing. This wasn't a negotiation, it was extinction. If the Doomsday asteroid fired, there would be no Vorta Dominion by the next day cycle. Theron faced the most difficult decision of his long career. Loyalty to his species demanded he protect them, even from their own leadership's fatal hubris. With determined fingers, he composed an encrypted transmission containing the Doomsday asteroid's location and activation sequence, and sent it directly to Custodian Lyra. Seconds before the superweapon would have fired, a massive human vessel, dwarfing any warship Theron had ever encountered, materialized from apparent invisibility beside the artificial moon. A single, precise energy pulse penetrated to the asteroid's core, melting its primary power source and rendering it permanently inert. Simultaneously, Theron broadcast to all Vortan ships and citizens, revealing Kale's suicide gambit and calling for acceptance of the human terms as the only path to survival. The High Pontiff's own guards, realizing the catastrophe narrowly averted, detained him before he could issue further orders. 3 days later, Theron, now heading the interim Vortan government, formally accepted humanity's terms. Morgoth and his officers were surrendered to Aegis custody, and preparations began for the difficult process of reparations and ideological reconstruction. As the dust settled, Theron requested a private communication with Custodian Lyra. To his surprise, she accepted. Why maintain the facade? Theron asked when her image appeared. Why pretend to be a species with minimal military capability when you possessed such power? Lyra's severe expression softened slightly. Centuries ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself in a global civil war. From those ashes, we made a vow. Never again. Never again would we be vulnerable. Never again would we be subjugated. But neither would we repeat the mistakes of our ancestors by becoming conquerors. She gestured, and the space behind her revealed a massive chamber where human technicians monitored holographic displays of galactic sectors. Aegis was established as the shield behind the explorer's hand. We genuinely desire peaceful exploration and cooperation. That is not a lie. But we will protect ourselves with absolute resolve when threatened. The dragons, Theron said quietly. Lyra nodded. An ancient human symbol, terrible in wrath, yet protective of its own. We hoped never to reveal this aspect of ourselves, but your leadership made that impossible. And now, Theron asked, what becomes of the Vorta Dominion? That depends largely on you, Lyra replied. We have no desire for conquest or subjugation. Reform your empire, abandon your expansionist ideology, and we can forge a peace that benefits both our peoples. And if we don't, then the dragons remain awake. Her meaning was unmistakable. The peace treaty that followed was not easily achieved. The Vorta, accustomed to seeing themselves as the galaxy's rightful rulers, struggled with their new position. Centuries of cultural superiority could not be undone in days or even years. Many hardliners resisted the changes, clinging to dreams of revenge against the humans who had so thoroughly humiliated them. Yet the evidence of Aegis's overwhelming technological advantage could not be denied. The human fleet remained stationed at strategic points throughout Vortan space during the transition, a constant reminder of what had been awakened. For Theron, watching his civilization painfully reconstruct itself from the foundation up, the lessons were bitter but necessary. The line between protector and destroyer was thinner than anyone realized. The dragons of human legend were not merely destructive forces, he had learned, but complex symbols, destructive when roused, yet fundamentally defensive in nature. As the Aegis fleet eventually withdrew to their secret bases, returning to their watchful silence, the galaxy adjusted to a new equilibrium. The Vorta Dominion, chastened and reformed, took its first uncertain steps toward becoming a different kind of power, one built on cooperation rather than domination. And throughout known space, other species who had watched the brief, one-sided conflict took note. Beneath humanity's peaceful overtures lay sleeping dragons. Best not to wake them.